Welcome back to the Dairy Knowledge Exchange. I'm Pat Colley, and I'm excited to share a fresh initiative we're launching in 2025 here at D&D Ingredients. Each month, we'll bring an educational webinar on this platform, spotlighting timely industry topics and featuring one of our valued partner products. Make sure to visit the D&D website regularly to explore these new learning opportunities.
Hello, my name is Dr. Clay Zimmerman, and I'm the Director of Science and Technical Services for Balchem Corporation. And today I'd like to introduce our rumen-protected methionine product, AminoShure XM, to you. So AminoShure XM, our value proposition, we can save you up to 5 cents per cow per day on your methionine investment, which adds up to very large numbers over the course of a month and a year for a herd. So the overview of the product is, it's a lipid-coated true encapsulate, as all of our animal encapsulates are that we make at Balchem. The product is 70% DL-methionine, so it is rumen-protected DL-methionine. The methionine bioavailability is 54.25%, and I will walk through where those numbers came from. Ultimately, the number that matters is a metabolizable methionine content. The product is 38% metabolizable methionine, and that's simply the methionine level, the 70% methionine times the methionine bioavailability will give you the metabolizable methionine value. It comes in 25 kg bags, and the product is very feed stable, but we do not recommend pelleting of AminoShure XM nor any rumen-protected methionine product. So as far as the research behind the product, I like to show this slide. This is really the three-legged stool of a good ruminant end cap. And the three parts of that, first of all, are rumen stability. We're trying to get as much of the methionine through the rumen as possible. And then ultimately, we want as much intestinal release as we can get post-ruminally. The step that's often overlooked as far as ruminant end caps are concerned are feed and mixing stability. So we really go through the rigor of all three of these steps when we're creating new products or improving products. So we've done all of this work with AminoShure XM to really come up with the best combination of feed and mixing stability, rumen stability, and intestinal release in the product. And then ultimately, once we meet those three criteria, we run the animal studies to prove biological response of the product. So we're going to start off talking about the different production trials that we've done with AminoShure XM. So these are in vivo feeding methods where we feed the product to the cows. These trials are designed to measure milk and milk component responses. With a rumen-protected methionine product, we're mainly looking at milk protein percent and yield. That's the best measure of how well a rumen-protected methionine product is working in the cow. I'm going to show you the results of two different experiments that we conducted. One was at Virginia Tech, that was done in the fall of 2016, and one was done at the University of Delaware in the spring of 2017. And our objective in these studies was to look at lactation performance and determine relative methionine bioavailability of AminoShure XM to SmartAmine-M. Both of these studies were done under similar conditions. They were 5x5 Latin square designs where every cow receives every treatment during the study. So in this case, it's 5 periods that each lasted 14 days. The first 10 days of each period are for treatment adaptation, and we measure response the last 4 days of each period. And in both cases, cows were housed in freestall barns equipped with these Kaelin gate feeding systems that you can see in the picture on the left. And that allows, first of all, the administration of the treatments to each cow, and also allows us to measure individual dry matter intakes on each cow. So the Virginia Tech study was done in Dr. Mark Hannigan's lab at Virginia Tech. It was a replicated 5x5 Latin square design. In this case, it was 10 peak lactation cows. They were all multiparous cows, so second lactation or greater. So it was replicated twice, 2 5x5 Latin square blocks. The basal diet was methionine deficient. It was about 15 grams per cow per day deficient metabolizable methionine. The diets were all sufficient in energy by NRC requirements, and they were supplemented with lysine. We wanted to make sure that lysine was not deficient in these diets. We also made sure we were meeting the histidine requirements as well. We wanted to make sure that methionine was the first limiting amino acid in the study. There were 5 treatments in the design, as I talked about earlier, but I'm only going to share the results of 3 of the treatments. There was a negative control treatment where the cows received no rumen-protected methionine. There was a SmartAmine M treatment where we made up the metabolizable methionine difference with SmartAmine M, and there was an AminoShure XM treatment. This particular study, it was the first production study that we had done with AminoShure XM, and we were actually evaluating 3 different prototypes at this time. So the AminoShure XM treatment is the treatment it is the product that we commercialized and took to market. The other 2 treatments, which I'm not sharing, were prototypes that we were working on at the time. One of the prototypes performed equally well to AminoShure XM, and one did not perform as well. These are the results of the study. So if you look at this slide, we have the negative control treatment, the SmartAmine M treatment, and the AminoShure XM treatment across the top. The cows performed quite well in the study. They averaged about 100 pounds of milk per cow per day during the trial. And we saw the expected result that we thought we would see in this study. We did see a significant increase in milk protein percentage from the methionine supplemented cows. So there was a 1/10 of a point increase in milk protein percent with the AminoShure XM treatment, and the SmartAmine M treatment was equal to AminoShure XM as far as milk protein percentage. So we saw the desired outcome in this study, and we're quite pleased with these results. If we look at milk protein yield, it was not a statistically significant difference in milk protein yield, but I will tell you that a 50 to 60 gram increase in milk protein yield is very economically relevant. So it's a very good outcome in a study like this. So we moved from that study onto a study at the University of Delaware. This was a similar trial design. It was 10 mid-lactation cows in this case. These cows averaged about 100 days in milk at the start of the trial. There was 1 block of multiparous cows, so second plus lactation animals, and 1 block of first calf heifers or primiparous animals. The basal diet was very similar to the Virginia Tech study that I just showed you. In this case, the basal diet was 16 grams deficient in metabolizable methionine per cow per day. There were 5 treatments that I'll show you. There was the negative control treatment, again, that was not supplemented with rumen-protected methionine. There was the SmartAmine M treatment, again. In this case, we dosed the AminoShure XM at 3 different dosage rates. The 100% dose was basically the dosage that we fed in the Virginia Tech study, where we saw very good results in the Virginia Tech trial. The 67% of the metabolizable methionine content of SmartAmine. So the lowest treatment here We assumed the cows would not perform as well there, but this was a roundabout way of doing a bioavailability study at the time. The 83% treatment fell right in between the lowest dose and the highest dose in this case. So those were the 3 different dose rates, just basically feeding increased levels of AminoShure XM as we went from 67 to 83 to 100% of the metabolizable methionine content of smartamine. These are the results of the study. Because we had 1 block of multiparous cows and 1 block of primiparous cows, of course, overall dry matter intake was lower than the Virginia Tech study, and the milk yields were lower. Again, because we had a block of first calf heifers in this trial as well. There were a lot more variables that were significant in this particular study. No difference in dry matter intake or milk yield across treatments. If we look at milk fat yield, actually the lowest performing treatment was the lowest dose rate of AminoShure XM. If we look at milk protein percentage, we did get an increase in milk protein percentage with all of the methionine supplemented diets. And there was no difference in milk protein percentage between smartamine M and the 2 highest dose rates of AminoShure XM. The 83% and the 100% dose were equal in milk protein percentage to smartamine M in this case. Milk protein yield actually looked very similar to what we saw in the Virginia Tech study, where we saw numerical increases in milk protein yield with smartamine M and the 2 highest dose rates of AminoShure XM in this case. We did measure milk casein percentage. That's the major milk protein that is produced, and the one that's most highly correlated to cheese yield. It basically just followed the same trends as total milk protein percentage did. And if you look at fat-corrected milk in this case, the lowest performing dose or treatment was the low dose rate of AminoShure XM. But if we look at the 2 highest dose rates of AminoShure XM, they were equal to smartamine and the negative control in this case. So more treatments here in this case with 3 different dose rates. But the bottom line on this study was, if you look overall at milk protein percentage and overall yield, the 2 highest dose rates of AminoShure XM were equal to smartamine M in this study. So the summary of that, of the overall summary of those 2 trials, that Virginia Tech study was published in the Journal of Dairy Science in 2019. And both of these studies were presented at ADSA meetings back in 2017 and 2018. And our findings basically were that when AminoShure XM and smartamine M are fed to provide the same amount of metabolizable methionine, both products perform equally in lactation performance. And that includes milk protein percent and yield, milk fat yield, and milk casein percent. So we moved from that research into actual bioavailability research for AminoShure XM. And we utilized a couple of different techniques to look at the methionine bioavailability of AminoShure XM. And we consider the milk selenomethionine technique, which is the first one I'm going to talk about here. We consider this one of the gold standard techniques for measuring methionine bioavailability of rumen-protected methionine products. This particular technique is an in vivo feeding method where we actually feed the products. In this case, the products were actually mixed in the feed mill at Ohio State University. So we are taking that feed stability step into account in this case. The way this technique works is it actually uses milk selenomethionine as a tracer of methionine in the milk. So when you feed selenium yeast in the diet, that selenium yeast actually replaces sulfur in the methionine molecule with selenium in the methionine. And the animal's tissues actually can't distinguish between selenomethionine and regular methionine that would contain sulfur. So this, by feeding a consistent dietary source of selenium yeast to these cows, you're actually able to utilize this as a method to measure the methionine bioavailability from your rumen-protected methionine product. This procedure was first published by Bill Weiss and Norman St. Pierre in 2009 in the Journal of Dairy Science. And there have been a number of studies run through the years with this technique. We really like this technique because you're actually measuring how much of the methionine from these rumen-protected methionine products ends up in the milk protein. So how much is the cow actually utilizing in this case to make milk protein? So for this particular study that we ran, we compared AminoShure XM to Mepron in this case. We conducted the study at The Ohio State University with Dr. Bill Weiss, since they were the ones that pioneered this technique. We had 3 treatments in this case. The 3 treatments were Mepron, dosed at 19 grams of methionine per cow per day. And there were 2 AminoShure XM treatments. One, we fed the same dose of methionine, 19 grams of methionine coming from AminoShure XM. And then we fed a double dose, 38 grams of methionine per cow per day. Dr. Weiss suggested the double dose treatment here because it would give us two different measures of the methionine bioavailability of AminoShure XM. We were not taking bioavailability into account in this case. We're trying to measure it in this particular study. So we just fed equal rates of methionine coming from Mepron and AminoShure XM, and then a double dose of AminoShure XM. The way the trial was designed, it was 15 mid-lactation cows. So it was a 5 times replicated 3x3 Latin square. So every cow received the 3 treatments, the Mepron dose, the 1x AminoShure XM dose, and the 2x AminoShure dose. And again, cows were fed a common diet that contained selenium yeast throughout the trial. So the basal treatment was the cows received the basal TMR for 10 days, and they sampled the last 2 days of milkings on the basal diet, so the pre-treatment. Then they went through 3 10-day periods where the cows received each of the 3 rumen-protected methionine treatments. And again, they sampled the last 2 days of milkings per period there. And then they go back to the basal diet again at the end for 7 days and measure the last 2 days of milkings again. So you're comparing the methionine bioavailability during the treatment periods to the pre and post-treatment periods. And basically what they found was that AminoShure XM and Mepron are equal in methionine bioavailability. When you feed the same dose of methionine to the cows, the same amount shows up in the milk protein. That's what this graph is telling us. When we double the dose of AminoShure XM, we had twice as much show up in the milk protein. So it was a very clean study, very nice design, very nice results. It gave us two independent readings on the methionine bioavailability of AminoShure XM in this case. This technique was repeated and presented at the 2022 ADSA meetings. This work was done by Michigan State University and Adam Locke's lab. We were actually not involved in this particular experiment, but they utilized AminoShure XM as a treatment in that particular study and essentially found they measured the same bioavailability that we state, 54.25%. They measured as 54.1% in this case. So extremely similar numbers that were verified really by a third party in this case where we were not involved in the experiment. The other technique that really is the gold standard technique for measuring the bioavailability of any amino acid in this case, the selenium-methionine technique can only be used to measure the bioavailability of methionine. Stable isotope techniques can be used to measure the bioavailability of any amino acid and really any nutrient for that matter. So this was some work that was done in Dr. Mark Hannigan's lab at Virginia Tech again, utilizing his stable isotope technique. And in this case, they measured the methionine bioavailability of AminoShure XM at 55.0%. So it very closely aligns to the bioavailability that we measured with the milk selenium-methionine technique. And it also essentially aligned with the production studies that we ran prior to this. So the way that AminoShure XM is characterized in the CNCPS model is a 70% methionine product with 80% rumen bypass, 68% intestinal availability. So the methionine bioavailability is 54.25%. And that's coming from all of the data that I just shared with you. And the metabolizable methionine content is 38%. And again, metabolizable methionine is simply the 70% methionine times the 54.25% methionine bioavailability. That gives you 38% metabolizable methionine. So what that means is if you feed 10 grams of AminoShure XM to a cow, the diet will increase 3.8 grams in metabolizable methionine. This is a spreadsheet that we created comparing AminoShure XM to a couple of other products that are out there, Smartamine M and Mepron. Again, when we ran our studies, we were comparing to these different products that were out there. These are the well-researched products that are out in the marketplace. And you can see there are two columns under each of these products. So AminoShure XM, there's a manufacturer's claim column. Those are the numbers that we claim, and it's what's in the CNCPS model. The second column under each product is the in vivo research. So what does the published research say these numbers are for each product? So for AminoShure XM, the numbers are the same. We introduced AminoShure XM in 2019, and it was based off of our published research that was out there. And those are referenced at the bottom of the slide in this case. So the numbers are in agreement. The numbers in the CNCPS model are based off of our published in vivo research. Smartamine M has been around actually since the mid-1980s. It's been available commercially since the early to mid-1990s. The manufacturer's claims that are in the CNCPS model, it is a 75% methionine product, 81% methionine bioavailability, which would give you a 60.75% metabolizable methionine. Adiseo sponsored a number of research studies in the early 2000s that were done in either beef steers or in dairy cattle. And they had a slightly lower methionine bioavailability, about a 75% methionine bioavailability in this case, which would give you a 56.1% metabolizable methionine. Mepron has been available in the marketplace since the mid-1990s. The manufacturer's claims that are in the CNCPS model are 85% methionine. They claim a 72.5% methionine bioavailability or 61.6% metabolizable methionine. There actually was a paper published in the Journal of Dairy Science in 2001. It was actually a very well done paper out of Canada. And what they found was a 54.1% methionine bioavailability in that case, which actually matches up very well with what we found in our milk selenium-methionine work at Ohio State when we were comparing AminoShure XM to Mepron. So if you utilize those numbers, 85% methionine times the 54.1% methionine bioavailability of the product, that would give you a 46% metabolizable methionine for Mepron. Of course, we like to say the cow is the ultimate judge. So everything I've shown up to this point was university research that was done under very controlled research conditions. We've actually utilized a real results challenge for AminoShure XM, pretty similar to what we've done with our ReaShure product through the years. This program is available to any new users, any new farms that are using AminoShure XM. It's basically a 50-cent per pound rebate to the producer for product that's used during a 60-day trial period. And we basically give the rebate to the dairy producer at the end of the 60-day trial period. And if you want to utilize this program, you basically just need to talk to your Balchem representative in the area to sign the herd up for the program. We've done a number of these through the years. Again, we introduced AminoShure XM to the market in 2019. This was a summary of real results programs we had done as of a few months ago, and we'd finished 291 of these studies. 143 of those herds had been on SmartAmine M, 37 have been on Mepron, and 110 herds actually had not been supplementing any rumen-protected methionine prior to that. So you can see the feeding rates here. This is grams per cow per day, a product of the competitive product that was fed. This is how many grams of AminoShure XM were fed to do the replacement, basically. And we look at milk protein change 60 days out. We predict what should happen to milk protein percentage after the herd is on product for 60 days. We do take seasonality into account. There's a real seasonal pattern to both milk protein percentage and milk fat percentage. So in this case, when we switch a herd from either SmartAmine M or Mepron to AminoShure XM, we would expect a zero change 60 days out. Cows should just sort of maintain their same milk protein percent as we would predict. We actually saw a slight improvement numerically when the cows switched to AminoShure XM. Probably not statistically significant, but it did work in our favor. So the product performed quite well in the field. And you can see the average savings in these herds at this point. The smart herds that were on SmartAmine N saved 3.7 cents per cow per day. The herds on Mepron saved 2.4 cents per cow per day. The herds that were not supplementing rumen-protected methionine, we would expect those herds to increase in milk protein percentage. They increased 0.09 percentage units, so about a tenth of a point. That's exactly what we would have predicted based off of the feeding rates of AminoShure XM. So the product has performed quite well in the field and has been saving producers money on their methionine investment. And this really just points out the differences, these seasonal patterns in milk protein percentage. This is the Federal Milk Marketing Order 1 in this case. And you can see seasonally, the lowest milk protein percentage occurs every July. This is basically 15 years of data year over year. All the herds in the northeastern U.S. They all bottom out in July. They all peak. The peak month is actually November. So November, December, January are your peak months for milk protein percentage, and the summer months are the lowest. So herds that would start on product, say, in March or April, we would expect milk protein percent percentage actually decrease in the herd seasonally. We take that into account when we're predicting performance. By the same token, in the fall, we would expect these herds to increase in milk protein percentage, and we take that into account as well. Just something I always like to remind people of, that seasonality of milk component percentages. This is the same graph, but this is for the upper Midwest milk marketing order. This would be primarily Wisconsin and Minnesota. You see these same seasonal patterns everywhere, really across the world. So to summarize, AminoShure XM is the best cost rumen-protected methionine per unit of metabolizable methionine as compared to the other well-researched products that are out there. You can save up to 5 cents per cow per day. The product contains 70% DL-methionine, so it's a 70% methionine product. It's 38% metabolizable methionine, and it has excellent results on farm. We've had the product out 5.5 years now with very excellent results on farm. So if you have any further questions about AminoShure XM or any of Balchem's products, please contact your local Balchem representative, who is Brian Garrison. He's our dairy specialist in the area. His cell phone is 614-264-3240, and his email is bgarrison@balchem.com. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Dairy Knowledge Exchange. Don't forget to check our product page for featured products and promotions throughout the year. Connect with us on LinkedIn or share your thoughts and topic suggestions directly with me at pat@ddingredient.com. We look forward to hearing from you.